Hello and welcome to the Soccer Train Club, also known as the Club. This soccer channel serves as a one-stop platform connecting soccer administrators, coaches, referees, scouts, fans, parents, sponsors, and other stakeholders to explore key issues in global soccer administration. I'm your host, Mwandibuya Kennedy Mutefa, with over 30 years of soccer administration experience in Africa and North America. Join me bi-weekly as I explore insights and foster global conversations, exploring the challenges, opportunities, and growth of the most beautiful game, soccer. Once again, I welcome you. In today's episode, I will introduce myself and the key topical areas we will cover on this channel and other services that we provide. I was raised in Zimbabwe and have had the privilege of serving in various roles in football administration sector. I initially served as a treasurer and secretary of a Premier Soccer League club. In the year 2000, I was elected to become the Secretary General of the Premier Soccer League in Zimbabwe, a position I held until 2003. Later in 2008, I joined the Zimbabwe Football Association as a board member responsible for development, when I also concurrently I was appointed to be the general manager of the Midlands province for the national youth games during the same period. In 2015, I served as a tournament director for a national under-17 boys soccer tournament. Since 2017, I have been a board member of the Calgary United Soccer Association, KUSA, contributing to development of soccer in Alberta province here in Canada. Thank you and welcome back to our part 2 of our first episode, where we say we now go into the soccer governing issues. These issues are the ones that either makes a national association excel or sometimes it creates some challenges. In these issues, we'll talk about board composition. You'll find that each and every national association, they come up with their own size of the board, who should be in the board. And sometimes you find that in these boards, the issue is who should be in the board. It creates a lot of challenges. You are talking about qualification into the board, who should be in the board. Sometimes national association, they actually come with the restrictions on who should be in the board based on educational qualification. Some national associations, they've come up with, say, a minimum entry that for one to qualify or for one to be elected in the National Association Board, he has to have certain educational qualification, or he has to be technically knowledgeable, like some former referees, coaches, former players. But the issue of educational qualifications can create challenges, can create problems, whereby in some cases, like right now trending, the Zimbabwe Football Association, the Normalization Committee, they are in the process of reviewing the Zimbabwe Football Association Constitution. And in the Zimbabwe Football Association Constitution, currently, there is a clause which say for one to qualify to be president or vice president of the National Association, he or she needs to have 5 O levels. And that issue, as we speak today, it's a hot issue, because sometimes those who don't have the educational qualification, but they've got the technical experience, like former players, coaches, and referees, they will feel that they're being blocked from participating in soccer issues in the country. So this issue of educational qualifications is really an issue. Talking about the size of the board of the National Association, I remember beginning of the year, there was a report in one of our local sports online news, where last year the Minister of Sport in Canada, he actually requested a private law firm to kind of like carry a study on the composition of the Canada Soccer Board. I briefly read that report, and that report is talking about the law firm recommending that the Canada Soccer Board needs to be reduced from 15 to 9 or 11. They came up with some recommendations. In our next episode, we will actually go into detail on that and actually be in a position to analyze what was it that the minister wanted the private law firm to look at. What is the law firm's recommendations? And then let's discuss, let's share as the soccer lovers, as the owners of the game. Let's talk about this issue. Is it really the size of the board that matter, or it is the board members who engage in the business of the National Association? These are the issues that we are bringing up to you as the owners of the game, as soccer lovers. You may not be a coach, you may not be a board member of any association at any level, but you love the game, you love soccer. We want to engage in these discussions. We want to hear your views. What do you think? This Canada report, we really want to go into it, and I really want to hear what we think. What we think, we also believe that those who are at the Canada Soccer Board, they will have an opportunity to go through the comments and also to hear what people will be saying on this platform. Not only Canada, but more countries, more national associations, they will engage and they will also come up with their resolutions. So continue following us, like this platform, share and subscribe as we engage into these issues. The other area that is also of importance in governance is the appointment of subcommittees. You'll find that each and every national association, they appoint subcommittees like the governance committee, competitions committee, finance, technical and development. Some national associations, they do not really have a standalone marketing and communications subcommittee. They do not have strategic planning subcommittee. We want to look at that. We want to find out in your national association, what is it like? What do you think? So this is another area that we'll be looking at. The other also contentious topic is actually on the organization structure of our soccer association, the actual framework, the roles. What is the role of the National Association, its affiliates, leagues, clubs, government departments? In most of our countries, you find that government is government through the Minister of Sport. They do not necessarily engage with our soccer associations. Some of them, they have, like here in Canada, we have Sports Canada. I know back home in my country, Zimbabwe, we have Sports and Recreation Commission. These are government departments that engage our national associations on day-to-day basis. So we want to look at that. How do they relate? How do they supervise each other? On this episode, we are going to talk about the issue. I'm sure all of us, we've read about government intervention. We've read about FIFA suspending national associations because of government intervention. We'll be looking at that shortly. We also want to look at issues to do with the composition of the assembly or the National Assembly, what we can actually call the Supreme Policy Making Board. Who should be in that Supreme Policy Making Board? You'll find that each and every national association, they've got different approaches, different way of doing things. In some national association assemblies, you will have the grassroots, the professional league, former players, coaches, referees, and in some you also have like school and college structures who are also involved. I've had an opportunity of reading some reports, surveys that have been done by the International Center for Sport Studies. The International Sport for Sport Studies is actually an organization that works together with FIFA. They have done a lot of research, and we will bring in some of their research work for discussion on this channel, and then this will actually help us to assess how other people are doing, and also if there are areas we can also copy, or if there are areas we can actually also adjust the way we do things, or just for knowledge, just for you to know. So this is another area that we'll also be looking at. We are also going to look at, like I said, the national associations supervision with government. How do governments supervise national associations? What is the link? How are they related? We are also going to be looking at that in detail. We are also going to look at the government when they involve with national associations. Now the government, they come up with funding, support to the national associations. How do they do it? Many times you find that the government will come in with funding at what I would call the 11th hour. The government, the national team is going for some international commitments. Either they are playing preliminary rounds or even playing in the finals. That's when you find that sometimes the government will come in and say, you will normally hear our friends from the news, the journalists, they'll say, oh, the National Association got a shot in the arm, they were given 200,000. And sometimes when you analyze, you find that that money is only coming when the team has got maybe 4 or 5 weeks to go into competition. And you find that soccer development is not an event. It's not like if you give the national team money today, tomorrow they'll go and win. Soccer development is a process. So we also want to do some assessments and say which countries support their national association from grassroots, from developmental stage. They plan together, they actually come up with a budget, and then that budget or the money is availed as and when the national team requires the money. Not to say every time you are now going into the finals or you're now going into the actual competition, then the government comes in and help. So on this one, we are also going to be doing a global poll. We want you, the owners of the game, to tell us, how do you rate your national or your government? There's going to be a poll that we'll conduct, but keep following us. Don't miss the opportunity every time when we do a video. Like and follow and share. We are going to have a poll that we will have in the next coming maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But basically, we want you as the owners of the game to share with us, rate your national association and tell us how it is behaving. Now, talking about government interference, you'll find that the small survey that we did in the last 9 to 10 years, FIFA have actually suspended about 9 countries. I'll just name them quickly. I could have left some, but these are the 9 that I picked in the last 8, 9, 10 years. Sri Lanka was suspended. Pakistan was suspended. Zimbabwe was suspended. Kenya was suspended. Mali was suspended. Trinidad and Tobago was suspended. Chad was suspended. Sierra Leone was also suspended. And India. And if you look into these issues, why FIFA would suspend these national associations, it's to do with governance. In most cases, the government will come in and give instruction, or they even say, oh, these guys, they are corrupt. So as a result, they remove those guys who are in the board that runs the national association. Would want to go deep into these issues and actually do an assessment. When the FIFA or the international board suspends a national association, what really takes place? The communication that happens when the government sees news in the local newspapers where ABCD is happening within their national association. What does the government do? Can they intervene before their intervention is actually red flagged by FIFA? We want to know if some of you are in the ministries, if some of you have got relatives, even in the corridors of government, even in the corridors of those who are in charge, the president, the prime ministers. We want to know. Specifically, we want to know that if the president actually gets some information that he thinks this may cause our national association to be suspended, what do we do? Can we do something before we get suspended? We also want to know if, say for example, a government is involved or it interferes, but they write a letter to their national association and they copy FIFA or they copy the Confederation. We want to know, can FIFA write back to the government and say, we have seen your letter that you have written to your national association concerning these issues. We are taking over as FIFA because we don't want you to interfere with football business. So we are taking over and we ask your association board to answer to us. When they answer to us, this issue is settled. Does FIFA does that? If they do it, then why do the government continue interfering? If they don't do it, is it something that FIFA should not consider, that once they also seen that the government is interfering, they should take over and deal with it? These are the issues that we want to bring to you. What are your thoughts? We also want to hear from you, comment on these issues. We also want those who have got government connections, ministers, directors of Department of Sports. We want to engage them. We want to hear what they say. The other issue that is also very, very critical and important in terms of soccer governance is the formulation of the bylaws, amendments. You find that bylaws are amended sometimes for specific reasons. Some national associations, board members, or even councillors, they recommend amendments because they want control. Sometimes they want to elbow other people or other stakeholders out. Sometimes they will say, this stakeholder group, they've got too many votes. Like in other national associations, they allocate votes depending either on the number or the size of their committees or on the number of registered players. Who has got more registered players with the national association who have more votes. You know, these voting rights, they actually come differently. So we also want to look at that. We want you to share your experiences. How do you do it with your national association? And also, how best can it be done, especially where there are some conflicts? We want to look at that. We also want to talk about the issue of transparency and accountability. I've discovered that a good number of national associations, every time they do their financial statements, they upload them on their websites. When they do their annual reports, they upload them on their websites. It's not a secret for you to go and onto their website and read how they're performing, how much money they spent, how much money is in their investment. But some other associations, it's a secret. You don't see much on the financials on their websites. So these are the issues that we also want to talk about. We want to bring experts who share with us what they think can be done. Can the whole soccer family globally kind of come up with some standards that they follow? And if they don't follow it, I know sometimes FIFA, they say, we have not seen your financials for a certain period audited. Sometimes they even come up with some embargoes and say, look, you need to present these financials. But sometimes we also want to know that how strict is FIFA in getting these audited financials from the national associations? Because FIFA also gives some grants. Each and every national association, they get grants from FIFA. So we want to know that does FIFA really demand that audited financials are presented to them, or it's an option? Same as government. Most of these sports departments, they will request national associations to produce or provide audited financial statement. How strict are the governments on this? What can be done? We also want to look at the management of funds themselves. Stability as far as finance is concerned. Government, we talked about government having some budget for sport. Is this money availed on time, or is there even a budget? Does the different governments come up with the budgets for sport and then they do an allocation for soccer? We also want to look at that. Which countries actually follow this system religiously, where they come up with the budgets for their sport and then they avail these monies to the national associations. We also want to see from national association to national association how they engage with sponsors. Sponsorship is very important. Sometimes sponsors, they come with sponsorship contracts that are very conditional. I remember one of the sponsorship deal that we had back home in my country in Zimbabwe where you find that the national association or the league will have a sponsorship deal or agreement with a certain company, and then that company will give a condition that your member clubs should not go into contracts with our competitors. And then you have cases whereby you have got one of your member club who have a contract with a competitor of the league sponsor. These are issues that can be hot. These are issues that actually, in some cases, we have seen certain sponsors withdrawing their sponsorship because there's a conflict. Or sometimes you find that sponsors, they say a lot of your member affiliates, they are bringing the game of soccer into disrepute. So when you go to negotiate or to renew your contract, during my time when I was Secretary General, you would hear these directors of your sponsoring company saying, you guys, you need to reduce controversy in soccer. You need to eliminate controversy in soccer. My question to you is, to what extent can you reduce controversy in soccer? Yes, I agree. Really, sometimes controversy brings the game of soccer into disrepute. But what controversy? Can we eliminate the controversy? The controversy sometimes involve players being violent on the pitch, supporters, and also sometimes officials. Officials, they can actually utter statements in public, in the newspapers, which actually contravene some of the conditions of the sponsors agreement. And sometimes you end up either sponsors summoning you to deliberate on these issues, or to the extreme cases of withdrawing their sponsorship. We also want to look at that. We also want to look at the actual formulation of policies at government level. What I've discovered is that every time a government appoints a new minister will come and they will always say, I want to hit the road or the ground running, look at the issues where we can consult stakeholders. Every time there's a new minister, there's an issue of consultative meetings. You want to consult stakeholders. And at the end of the day, they come up, they write policies, they do this. After 4 or 5 years, another minister comes in, he or she is doing the same thing. We want to look at this. Do all national associations or do all governments do the same? How are they doing it in Australia? How are they doing it in the United States of America? How are they doing it in Canada, in Mexico, in Kenya, in Ghana? We want to look at these things. So our channel will also be doing some studies, we'll also be doing some surveys, looking at these things, and also we avail this information for you, the lovers of the game, for you, the administrators, wherever you are, for coaches, referees, so that you can also learn how other people are doing these things. Talking about formulation, there was one discussion that we had in one of our meetings here in Canada, and as we were deliberating on this issue, one of our officials said a very important statement, and he says, you know what, when we look at the formulation of policies, when you look at it coming up with a certain policy, there seems to be a difference between the National Association and we on the grassroots. And when I'm saying grassroots here, from my experience, grassroots means those guys who are running the province, those guys, they interact with the districts. The districts interact with the grassroots guys. So you find that there is kind of like no link between the National Association and the people at the grassroots. To the extent that this official end up saying, in his own opinion, he feels that what is called the definition of grassroots by the National Association may be different from the definition of grassroots at a provincial level or at a district level. I also want to hear your views. What do you think in your own National Association? Do you think the definition of your National Association of grassroots and the definition where you are, you may be at a provincial level, at a district level, even at a schools level, your understanding, are you moving together with your National Association? These are some of the things that we also want to discuss and deliberate on. The other hot issue is strategic planning. You know, National Associations, they come up with strategies. They've got visions, mission, strategic goals. But the question is, Are these vision, mission, strategic goals well articulated to member clubs or member affiliates to the extent that they understand it? Are they engaged? I would want to give a challenge to those who are in football administration, soccer. I want you to go and read the strategic goals from your national association website. When you've read those strategic goals, I also want you to go to an affiliate member below the national association. It can be a region, it can be a province. I want you to go and also read or analyze the strategic goals of the province, the region. Have a check, look if they are actually in tandem or they kind of like delve into each other, national and provincial. Then I also want you to check at the district level. The district members are then the affiliates of region or province. Have a look at the strategic goals of those guys at the district level. Are they running soccer on behalf of the province? And is the province running soccer on behalf of the national? These are the issues that sometimes when you look at them, and even the business itself, when you talk about business or for the national association, at your AGM, I also want us to look at an AGM or SGM. We talk about bylaws. We are either amending them or ratifying something that would have amended. We look at competition rules. Sometimes we change them each and every year. We also talk about strategic planning, the actual business of the National Association. I want you to take a look, check, and also I want to hear your comments. In terms of time allocation, you are at the AGM for those who are actually running soccer. You are at the AGM. How much time or how much time do you apportion to talk about bylaw amendments? How much time do you apportion talking about competition rules and regulations? And how much time do you actually give on strategic planning issues, the actual business of the National Association? Have a check, have a look. On the comment section, I also want to hear how you are doing it. And then we also compare from others. These are the issues that actually at the end of the day drive soccer. As long as we don't take soccer as business, it is difficult for the soccer to grow, because when we engage sponsors, those sponsors, they want to see the direction that the National Association is actually facing. We'll take another break, and when we come back, we also look at the other issues that are also part and parcel of this soccer governance. We go for a break. To the last part of this episode, where we are going through issues to, in the second part we talked about issues to do with the governance, and in this our last part we are also going to look at other issues that are important as far as soccer governance or soccer administration is concerned. We'll look at issues to do with youth development, junior leagues, junior policy, growth and development. We are going to be looking at each and every national association, analyzing their youth policy, junior policy, and also do some comparisons. We also want, with the help of you, the owners of the game, the lovers of the game, we also want you to share experiences, how the junior policy is in the UK, how the junior policy is in Australia, how the junior policy is and how does it compare in the USA, in Canada. Do we see a ceiling as far as the development of players is concerned? You know, some people always argue that there is a bottleneck between the grassroots or the junior level. As they go up, there is a bottleneck. There is, like for example, I'll tell you that the police of Canada says they hope that each and every player is given an equal opportunity to play soccer in Canada. But when you look at the structure, that's a question that I want to give you as a lover of the game, as a parent. Do you see your child who is playing soccer in Canada being given an equal opportunity? If there are barriers, what are the barriers? What are your suggestions? What are your views? So we also want you to come in and comment on our comment section and tell us what you think. If you think the structure of soccer in Canada is the best, tell us that it is the best. Or if you think it lacks here and there, tell us what you think. We also want to discuss and deliberate on the roles of academies. You find that almost every country, academies are coming up, and those academies, they are part and parcel of soccer development. What are their role? How are they doing it? How do our academies compare with other national association academies? The university soccer, college soccer, schools soccer. How is our school system merging into the mainstream? Are we doing the best? We want to look at that. At the end of the day, we are saying when we excel as a national association, it also has got a lot to do on how much we invest into these structures, junior policy, academies, universities, colleges, and schools. We also want to have a look at that. The other issue that we also want to look at in a much detail is around 2006, FIFA introduced what we call club licensing system. We want to really to share experiences, progress, challenges. How is it? How is your national association or your leagues handling the issue of club licensing? What areas can we also maybe share some notes, some information, or even collaborate? I'm also hoping that this channel is also going to create opportunities where leagues can collaborate, national associations, even clubs. I remember when I was Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Premier Soccer League, I had an opportunity of visiting the South African League. When I went to South Africa, I had an opportunity of visiting Mamelodi Sundowns. I went to their clubhouse. I went to where they train. I also had an opportunity of visiting Kaizer Chiefs. I went to their Kaizer village. And also the whole idea was that trying to see how we can share, how we can actually collaborate, twinning, which clubs are having twinning, which clubs, or which clubs require twinning. We are also hoping that this platform will actually create an environment of engaging each other, where you think that you want to twin with other clubs, but you don't have access, or you want to twin with academies. We are also hoping that this channel will give that opportunity to connect with other academies, with other clubs who are doing well. We also want to look at things to do with player welfare, player development. We also want to see how other national associations, other leagues, other clubs, how they are doing. We are going to be writing a lot of articles that we are going to post on our website so that you can also have an opportunity of seeing how other people are doing it, coaches, referees, their development. We also want to look at those things. How are other people doing? I remember back home in my country, Zimbabwe, we used to have this system of hiring and firing coaches. Sometimes when you engage a coach, you give him 5 games. If you don't win those 5 games, we fire you. So by the time the coach loses the first game, already he is unstable. Second game, third game. On the third game, if he is still losing, already he's out. How are you also doing it at your club? What policies do you put in place that ensure that the coach is given a room to develop with his team? The coach actually have the opportunity to groom, to bring in youngsters, to build a team. We also want to look at these things, go into detail on how other clubs, they actually do it. The other most important issue today is the issue of infrastructure development. We also want to look at national associations, governments. Do they have policies and strategies to deal with the repairing of their facilities? I'm sure you know a good number of national associations, a good number of countries, and unfortunately, my country, Zimbabwe, today as we speak, they are playing their home games away from home. Their clubs, as they're engaging in the African safari, they're playing their home games away from home for a number of issues. So we also want to have a look at globally, how are other governments doing it? Do they set budgets to repair stadiums as government? National association, do they use money from FIFA to repair or upgrade their stadiums? What is it? I know the Zimbabwean situation, among other things, is the issue of the bucket seat system. And if I remember very well, this issue of the bucket seat system, it started well back, even at the time when I was also with the Premier League. I'm talking of, I was last with the Zimbabwe Premier League in 2003. The bucket seat system had already started, like FIFA was talking about it. So we are saying almost like 20 years down the line, a good number of national associations are still to deal with issues to do with bucket seat system and other issues to do with the condition of the stadium or the facilities. We want to have a look at this. Why is this national association lagging behind when others are far much ahead? Others have advanced. We want to look at these issues. We also want to hear your input. What do you think? What is it that governments needs to do? What is it that FIFA needs to do? What is it that the confederations needs to do to ensure that other national associations, they don't lag behind? Because we are saying 20 years down the line, some national associations are still to deal with issues of bucket system. We want to look at that. My other area of interest, as I've observed here in Canada, is the issue of parents' involvement and engagement with issues to do with their children's sport. My observation is that here in North America, parents, they are so much involved. I just took a very quick and rough survey every time I attend to games involving junior players, the youth. You find that my quick observation is between 60 to 80% of the participants or the players, they come with their parents. There is this huge parent support in North America. I was also sharing even today with a nephew who is in Australia. We were sharing the same sentiments. So the question that I'm bringing to you, the owners of the game, lovers of the game, that look, this support that we get from parents, for those in Canada, in the US, in Australia, in other countries where there's this support, the question that I will pose is administrators, are we leveraging this? Are we taking advantage of this support and take the game of soccer to another level? One of the objectives of the Soccer Train Club is also to help the soccer community in Canada to build strong soccer communities and make soccer the number one sport, the number one game in Canada. As the Soccer Train Club, we also want to market the game. We want to go into the communities, starting from our city where we are. We are based in Calgary. Calgary is a town of about, or a city of about 1.6, 1.7 million people. This is a big city according to my own personal view, and we are really looking forward to help soccer grow in Calgary. So we will also be working so hard. We'll be working with, we are blessed that we have got a Premier League team here, Calvary FC. We are also excited to have Calgary Wild FC. This is a new kid on the block. We have a women Super League that is starting next year, 2025 in Canada. And we would want also to channel our efforts and resources to promote and support, publicize. We want almost every Calgarian to know that there is Premier League in Calgary for both men and women. So these are some of the things that we are also going to be looking at as the Soccer Train Club. We are also going to look at North America, other countries around America, Mexico, or I can just say all the other countries in the CONCACAF. We also want to showcase what they're doing, be it their clubs that are doing well, be it their academies that are also excelling. We want to give our region an opportunity to excel in soccer. But most of everything, we are so excited that Canada, Mexico, in the US, we are hosting FIFA 2026. Yes, you heard me well. All roads on the 2026 FIFA World Cup leads to this part of the world, this part of North America. We are hosting this most prestigious international competition. Oh yes, now it's 613 days to go from today. 613 days to go before we enjoy this marvelous international competition. I'm challenging you as a soccer lover. Tell your brother, tell your sister, tell your neighbor, even people at work, tell them that World Cup is coming to Canada, Mexico, and the US in 2026. We want to give it our best. Let's show the world that we can do it. So definitely, let's support the FIFA 2026 as we host it. We also want to look at research work. We are going to do some research work on those countries that have already hosted the World Cup, FIFA World Cup. Advantages and disadvantages, but we're more interested on this as a potential to grow business, to grow our clubs, to grow our academies. What is it that we can benefit from hosting the World Cup? So don't forget to tell your friends, tell your relatives that we are hosting FIFA World Cup 2026. We are also going to look at other things like doing some research work on a number of issues to do with soccer, be it things like sports medicine. We also want to give you, the owners of the game, an opportunity to just come on our website. If you want anything to do with soccer, if you want anything to do with soccer governance, we encourage you to come follow our website, follow our YouTube channel, engage in our discussions. Lastly but not least, on this channel, we also talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of soccer. What do I mean? We also want to look at how players, those who have actually hanged their boats, those who are no longer playing, what are they doing in the community? We know that a good number of them, they engage in a number of developmental projects. Some of them, they form academies. Some of them, they come up with some charitable organization where they are helping people. We want to follow those guys. We want to be in a position to showcase what they're doing. Even coaches, we also want to follow you up. What are you doing after your career of coaching? Referees, what are you doing after your career of officiating? Administrators, we also want to follow you and see when you leave from being a board member of a national association, a district, a province, a club, what are you doing? We want to follow you and look at those good things that you are doing. We would also look at the bad things. Sometimes football can be associated with bad things. We also want to highlight those bad things, not for the sake of publicizing them, but we are also hoping that as we talk about them, we actually want to reduce them, especially things to do with violence at games, things to do with abuse of players, of other fans, abuse of referees, even coaches. We will also be taking statistics, highlighting those things. The ugly ones, we have the ugly ones. where actually you find that sometimes players end up attacking referees, they attack coaches, or sometimes fans, supporters, they throw missiles into the stadiums. They actually disturb the flow of the game. And in worst situations, sometimes games are actually abandoned. I'll share with you one of my experiences talking about crowd control. One of my experiences is that when I was still the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Premier Soccer League, we were trying to negotiate with the police in Zimbabwe. Actually, the police, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, they actually man these games. So what you do is you have a pre-match meeting, especially on those big games. You have a pre-match meeting, you discuss on strategies to actually contain the crowd and the crowds and ensure that there is no throwing of missiles. So one of the discussions was that in Europe, we see that police, they don't watch the game. So they actually face the opposite direction. So you find during my time when I was Secretary General of the Premier Soccer League, we would try to engage the match, the police commissioners, and tell them, you know what, we need to follow what others are doing internationally. So can your manpower or can your police actually face opposite direction? You'll be surprised that even the commissioner himself or the police in charge would say, no, we can't do that. I remember one incident, I told one senior police guy that if your police do not face the crowd to help us have a crowd control, I will not pay them. In Zimbabwe, police after the game, they are given their daily allowances. So I said to the commissioner, I will not pay your police. And you know what he says to me? He says, you are looking for trouble. So these are the things that sometimes from different national associations we engage. Do we still have that problem in Zimbabwe? Do we still have that problem in other countries where it's very difficult to control the crowd? I remember just before I left PSL, we had to actually ban alcohol from our stadiums. How are you doing it with your own leagues, with your own national associations, as far as crowd control is concerned? So this channel will be engaged in all these issues and the other issues that we have left. We also request from you, the owners of the game, to also on our comment section, any other issues that you think we can bring up, just put down in your comments. And we also invite specialists to deal with any issue about soccer that you feel we can discuss and engage each other at a global scale. Lastly but not least, our channel will also be doing some webinars where when we identify certain topics, what issues, we can actually arrange webinars, bring in specialists, and then we deliberate on them. It can be negotiating for sponsorships. How do you negotiate? How do you calculate the best sponsorship deal? Sometimes it's very difficult. How do you put value? How do you measure value of advertising through sport? How do you negotiate and get the best deals? We are also going to be looking at those and potentially bring in specialists on our webinars. I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for engaging through all our discussions as we go and deliberate, as we are deliberating and on this issue for our most beautiful game. For now, it's bye. I thank you. We meet again on our next episode. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.